Departing from the imposing, sunlit architecture of the grand estate, a determined voice announces their final departure to the open sky. The overarching narrative immediately shifts its intense focus to the complex marital dynamic between Marchioness Carol and her esteemed husband, Alan. Projecting an aura of calm authority near the awaiting carriage, Alan gently reminds Lady Carol that she has an important social gathering to attend. Asserting his protective yet formal nature, the Marquis and Commander of the Knights urgently implores his wife to take care of herself. Closing the physical distance between them, the commander suddenly envelopes his wife in a tight, protective embrace on the majestic stone steps. Leaning in with an affectionate, breathtaking gaze, Alan softly declares that he is leaving for his demanding duties. Standing radiantly at the top of the grand staircase, Carol offers a warm, cheerful wave goodbye as her imposing husband walks away. Beaming with visible, uncontainable delight, she continues to wave her hand enthusiastically until his broad silhouette completely vanishes from sight. Assisted by a fiercely loyal attendant, the gracefully attired Marchioness boards her ornate, horse-drawn carriage to attend the aristocratic gathering. Once secured inside the lavish, quiet cabin, her vibrant demeanor drops instantly as she stares silently out the window in deep contemplation. Suddenly erupting into an intense, heart-filled squeal of pure joy, she passionately swoons over how wonderful Alan is today and declares her overwhelming love for him. Thrashing playfully against the luxurious carriage cushions, she excitedly replays the memory of his recent embrace before a sudden, darker thought completely shatters her joy. Exhaling a heavy, mournful sigh, her bright expression shifts to somber resignation as she painfully admits that their relationship holds absolutely nothing beyond those surface-level gestures. Staring blankly ahead, she reflects on the bitter reality that she forced this marriage upon him, fully aware of the tragic underlying reasons for his perpetual emotional distance. Drifting into painful memories, she contextualizes her royal past by remembering her elevated status as the sheltered fourth princess of the realm. Bearing a deep-rooted, unwavering affection, she reflects on how she had intensely admired Alan from afar since she was a very young girl. Exploiting her powerful father's doting nature toward his youngest daughter, she easily convinced the monarch to officially arrange their lifelong marital match. Looking back at the ghostly images of their younger selves, she recalls being completely naive and blissfully overjoyed by the prospect of their impending union. However, her beautiful childhood fantasy was tragically shattered by the devastating realization that Alan already possessed another woman he truly and deeply loved. Struck by a horrifying, world-altering revelation, she discovered that the reassuring, comforting words previously spoken by her elder sister had been a complete fabrication. The crushing, suffocating truth washed over her trembling frame, confirming that the esteemed knight commander had never actually wished to take her as his lifelong bride. Enduring 3 agonizing years of a completely unconsummated union, she bitterly notes that he preserved their white marriage by never even laying a hand on her during their wedding night. Despite enduring this overwhelming emotional distance, she desperately clings to the fleeting, lingering remnants of their daily interactions with tragic hope. Bound by noble duty and his inherent, inescapable kindness, Alan effortlessly maintains the flawless public facade of a perfectly supportive and good husband. Determined to spare him any further internal suffering, she actively suppresses her true feelings and fiercely strives to avoid becoming a burdensome presence in his life. Maintaining a gentle and agreeable disposition through her silent agony, she firmly convinces herself that she must at least fulfill the role of a perfect, dutiful wife. Arriving seamlessly at the high society gathering, the Marchioness joins the other elite noblewomen for an elegant outdoor tea party beneath the shaded garden canopies. Deflecting lavish praise with practiced humility, Carol charms her aristocratic peers by gracefully claiming she cannot possibly compare to their own admirable societal graces. The polite, superficial conversation suddenly shifts into dangerous territory as the gossiping noblewomen excitedly bring up a scandalous rumor regarding the first princess. Gripping a nearby stone pillar in rising, uncontrollable panic, Carol intensely eavesdrops on the whispering ladies to uncover the hidden truth about her elder sister. The gossiping aristocrats gleefully discuss how exceptionally close the first princess and Lord Alan have become, smugly noting their undeniable, striking compatibility. Lowering her voice conspiratorially behind an ornate fan, one of the noblewomen leans in to maliciously reveal a shocking event that occurred just last weekend. Brimming with scandalous delight, the woman dramatically claims to have witnessed the stoic knight commander and the first princess locked in a passionate kiss with her own eyes. Cruelly dismissing Carol's marital worth, The ladies snicker that it is only a matter of time before the naive Marchioness is entirely cast aside for her vastly superior sister. Unable to bear the devastating public humiliation a second longer, a completely heartbroken Carol hastily flees the garden gathering with hot tears streaming down her face. Panting heavily as she desperately escapes the suffocating whispers of the nobility, she tries to catch her breath amidst a spiraling, traumatic panic attack. Breaking down entirely in the secluded shadows, she succumbs to violent sobs and painful hiccups as the crushing weight of her loveless reality crashes over her fragile heart. The horrific, jagged pieces finally fall into place, leading her to the agonizing conclusion that Alan's true, unspoken love has always been her elder sister. Collapsing weakly against a rough tree trunk in the isolated garden, she mournfully accepts that her 3 years of marriage were nothing but a fleeting, fabricated dream. Resolving to permanently end his quiet, enduring suffering, she makes the ultimate heartbreaking sacrifice and decides to set Alan free from their restrictive, loveless bonds. The narrative abruptly transitions away from the opulent grand estate to focus entirely on a modest, sunlit building nestled in a quiet, unassuming town. Life continues its steady, unstoppable progression as the seasons change and the tumultuous, painful events of the aristocratic past begin to fade into distant memory. Exactly 1 year later, a sweeping, expansive view of a bustling, peaceful town beautifully introduces the next chapter of her drastically altered, ordinary life. A polite, melodic voice rings out in a quaint storefront, expressing warm, sincere gratitude to a departing patron. Disguised successfully as a commoner, Carol smiles brightly as her kind employer praises her hard work and happily dismisses her after a long day of arranging flowers. Strolling thoughtfully through the quiet streets, she reflects on how she abandoned the royal capital, leaving behind only signed divorce papers and a farewell letter at the Marquis estate. Gazing up at the painted evening sky, she silently, melancholically wonders if Alan and her elder sister have finally tied the knot and found happiness. Furrowing her brow in slight, nagging confusion, she realizes that news of a grand royal wedding involving her sister would have certainly reached even this remote town. Even though her new, simple life is deeply fulfilling and peaceful, she tearfully confesses to the empty air that she will always love Alan and thinks of him every single day. Gripping her small bag tightly as she walks alone down the quiet path, she harbors a deep, enduring regret that she never honestly confessed her profound love to him. A loud voice suddenly cuts through the peaceful atmosphere, desperately calling out Carol's name from behind. Startled by the sudden disturbance, she turns her head back with a look of mild surprise and confusion. A blond man named Ben approaches her with a cheerful wave and a casual greeting. Grinning brightly, he points out that she is done with work and enthusiastically suggests they go for a drink. Carol's expression drops into deep exasperation, internally lamenting that he always acts like this no matter how many times she refuses. Maintaining her boundaries, she firmly apologizes and states that she cannot go out with him regardless of how often he asks. Ben's friendly demeanor completely vanishes, instantly replaced by a dark, irritated scowl. Suddenly grabbing her arm with painful force, he angrily demands that she stop being so stuck up and insists that just one drink won't hurt. Terrified by his sudden, aggressive grip, Carol panics internally and desperately wonders what she should do to escape. As he aggressively orders her to hurry up and come with him, she cries out for someone to help. A dark, imposing figure suddenly intervenes, violently severing Ben's arm in a spray of blood while fiercely commanding him not to touch his wife. Blood splatters across Carol's shocked face as she stares at the gruesome scene in absolute, bewildered horror. Ben collapses backwards and screams in sheer agony as he realizes his arm has been completely severed. Trembling with wide, tear-filled eyes, Carol recognizes the voice and frantically stammers out a question of why he is here. Standing before her with blood splattered across his face, a deeply enraged Alan stares down at the horrific scene. The terrifying intensity of his dominant presence leaves her completely frozen in shock. Alan stands protectively in front of Carol, his bloodied sword drawn and pointed directly at the collapsing, mutilated Ben. With a chillingly calm smile and blood staining his cheek, Alan casually asks his terrified wife if it is all right to kill the man. The wounded man wails helplessly in the background as the horrific reality of the situation sets in. Desperate to prevent a murder, Carol frantically pleads with Alan to wait, explaining that Ben is just a customer from her workplace. She urgently grabs Alan's arm, using all her strength to hold him back from delivering the final, fatal strike. Alan reaches out with his free hand, gently but firmly grasping her face to force her attention back to him. He stares deeply into her eyes, his intense gaze cutting completely through the chaos of the bloody encounter. Processing her panicked explanation, he simply and quietly acknowledges her words with a brief nod. With a swift, fluid motion, he calmly sheathes his bloodied sword back into its dark scabbard. Without uttering another word, he scoops her up effortlessly into his arms, completely ignoring the bleeding man on the ground. Holding her securely against his chest, he carries a stunned Carol away from the gruesome scene. His heart beats heavily against her as he holds her tightly in his protective, possessive embrace. He buries his face deep into her shoulder, the imposing Knight Commander suddenly seeming surprisingly vulnerable. Carol's eyes widen in absolute shock as she feels a sudden, gentle friction against her skin. Pulling back slightly, Alan flashes a deeply relieved, affectionate smile and softly declares that he finally found her. Looking at her with raw emotion, he openly confesses just how truly he wanted to see her. Pulling her back into a desperate, tight embrace, he buries his bloodied face into her neck. Overwhelmed by this stark contrast to his past behavior, Carol internally questions if this fiercely protective man is really the gentle Alan she once knew. Reacting instinctively to her deep confusion, she pushes against his chest to create some physical distance between them. Alan looks down at her with a somber, melancholic expression etched across his handsome features. Standing alone in his imposing uniform, he quietly accepts the harsh reality of her physical rejection. Staring back at him in complete bewilderment, she weakly repeats his words, completely failing to understand his sudden obsession. His demeanor instantly darkens as he issues a chillingly possessive vow, promising that he will never let her escape. Reaching out with a gentle touch, he places 2 fingers lightly against her forehead. As her consciousness begins to fade from his magic, she weakly murmurs his name one last time. Her body goes completely limp, collapsing heavily and securely into his awaiting arms. Sinking into darkness, her final, lingering thought is a desperate plea to understand why this is happening. The narrative transitions abruptly to a grand, imposing estate bathed in the eerie light of the night. Carol's eyes flutter open, immediately greeted by a voice acknowledging that she is finally awake. She finds herself lying in a luxurious bed, with Alan standing vigilantly over her in the opulent room. Sitting up in a frantic panic, she looks around the familiar surroundings and realizes she is back in her old bedroom. Her eyes dart wildly as the terrifying implications of her current situation begin to fully sink in. A sudden clinking noise draws her attention down to her ankle, revealing a heavy metal chain binding her to the bed. Desperately grabbing at the thick restraints, she screams out in horror, demanding to know what has been done to her. He cornered her in the room, darkly declaring that he had ensured she could never run away from him again. Overriding her stammered protests, he coldly revealed that he had already told the flower shop she was quitting. Before she could process his controlling words, he leaned in and captured her lips in a sudden, forceful kiss. He wrapped his arm around her waist, deepening the embrace as the world seemed to fall away. Breaking the kiss with a soft hum, he lingered close to her face while his demeanor shifted. Confused and hurt, she pushed gently against his chest, quietly asking why he was doing this. His expression darkened as he confessed that her abandonment drove him to the brink of insanity, admitting he spent the past year relentlessly searching for her without sleep and would have killed any other man she loved. Pulling her firmly against his chest, he fiercely vowed that he would never grant her a divorce. He revealed the depths of his long-standing obsession, explaining how he desperately earned achievements as a knight solely for the chance to propose to her. Struck breathless by his intense confession, her eyes widened in profound shock. Misinterpreting her stunned silence, he scoffed bitterly, wondering if she was afraid of him while she internally reeled at the realization that he actually loved her. Lowering her gaze, she struggled to process the overwhelming flood of new information. Trying to articulate her chaotic thoughts, she began to speak, attempting to reconcile his words with her own assumptions. His bitter monologue was cut short, his eyes widening in sudden confusion. Reaching out, she tentatively gripped his clothing as her emotions surged to the surface. Surrounded by an aura of pure joy, she blushed profusely and breathlessly asked if he truly loved her. Caught completely off guard by her innocent reaction, a stunned gasp escaped his lips. Leaning in eagerly, she grabbed his collar and desperately pleaded to know if his confession was genuine and not just a kind lie. Flustered, he insisted he was serious and had only restrained himself to avoid burdening her, fully believing his daily attitude had made his feelings obvious. Her jaw dropped in absolute disbelief, confessing she had assumed his actions were merely him dutifully fulfilling his role as a husband. Overwhelmed by the revelation, she openly wept tears of joy, exclaiming that it felt like a wonderful dream. Her elation suddenly faltered as a dark thought crossed her mind, prompting her to ask when his feelings changed and if he still loved her sister. A heavy, somber silence fell over him as he processed her deeply misguided question. Genuinely baffled, he demanded to know what she was talking about and begged her to explain. Outside, the grand estate stood quiet under the night sky as the couple finally began to untangle their web of lies. He quickly realized the depth of the deception, deducing that she had believed the malicious rumors spun by the first princess. Looking up at him in dawning comprehension, she admitted she never knew he was the one who had actually proposed. The puzzle pieces fell into place as they realized her father's careless words had hidden her sister's unilateral infatuation with Alan. They exchanged their hidden perspectives, uncovering a tragic comedy of errors where he waited for her affection while she distanced herself to avoid being a burden. Overcome by the sheer absurdity of their situation, he dragged a hand down his face, groaning at the 4 years wasted on a mutual misunderstanding. Shifting his demeanor, he turned his intense gaze back to her, causing her to freeze in anticipation. Stripping away all remaining doubts, he softly declared that he had loved her since the very first time they met. In his mind's eye, the image of his younger self flashed, cheeks flushed with an early, enduring crush. His memory conjured a radiant young Vol, offering him a flower with a bright, life-changing smile. Grounded back in the present, his eyes softened with absolute devotion as he reaffirmed his love for her. Tears streaming down her face, she joyfully returned his confession, declaring he was the only one for her. A comfortable, charged silence settled between them as the weight of their confessions took root. His protective instincts flared as he warned her that he would never let her escape, asking if she could truly love a man as intense as him. In response, she threw her arms around him, pulling him close with a look of pure, unadulterated adoration. Flashing a brilliant smile, she happily agreed to stay by his side forever. Struck by her unwavering acceptance, his breath hitched as a heavy blush spread across his face. Taking control, she playfully pushed him down onto the bed, demanding that he tell her he loves her and touch her every single day. Letting out a shaky breath, he finally surrendered to his desires, warning her that she had no idea how much he had been holding back. His gaze darkened with unrestrained passion as he vowed to make up for all their lost time. Hovering over her, he told her to prepare herself, fully intending to prove the depths of his long-awaited love.